Kubiak, Mendoza, and Max. That is the conversation surrounding the silver and black. We'll jump into that plus more on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for February 12th, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome here, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. We're very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day. That's because of your support and because of the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes each and every day, making sure we look good and sound good. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. Does a great job. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. As we close out the show, we'll hear from you. Calls, texts, a lot of great feedback, a lot of real lengthy texts, so we'll try to get as much in as possible, but got a bunch of feedback, as you can imagine. Klint Kubiak, Max Crosby, Fernando Mendoza, those are the three main subjects. Coming up in segment number 2, Corbin Smith, Locked On Seahawks. He actually joined my radio show on Wednesday to talk about Klint Kubiak, talk about some potential assistants that could be coming with Kubiak to Las Vegas. Also, a couple players that you might want to be on the lookout for that could join Klint Kubiak in Vegas with the Raiders. So segment number 2, you'll hear that conversation. Corbin Smith, host of Locked On Seahawks. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day, and we'll jump into that. But first, before we jump into it, I do want to tell you about the latest rankings for this show. I tell you all the time that the Locked On Podcast Network is the number one sports podcast network. I tell you each and every day that this show continues to grow, and every once in a while, I like to give you an update and let you know what I mean by that. Right now, Locked On Raiders rankings, network top 20 listens per episode, we're ranked number 7. So think about that. All of the Locked On shows from NFL, baseball, NHL, every single show that they have across the entire network, we are number 7 as far as listens per episode. So thank you, Raider Nation, for that. NFL listen leaders, we are number 4 amongst all the NFL teams. All 32 were ranked number 4. That's on the audio side of things. Bills, Packers, and 49ers are the only teams that are ahead of us. So again, thank you, Raider Nation, for your loyalty and your support of the show each and every day. YouTube leaders, we're number 6. Bills, Packers, Rams, Chargers, and Ravens are ahead of us. So Ari, who I say all the time does a fantastic job, he does. He's gotten us all the way up to number 6 in a very short amount of time. We have not been on YouTube, and if it wasn't for Ari, we wouldn't be on YouTube. But he does a great job. We're up to number 6. Shout out to my pops. My pops watches us on YouTube all the time. Sometimes he lets that bad boy just roll. Right? He's like, you know what? Even if I'm not here, I'm just going to go ahead and let it play, and I'll just have my son's voice going on in the house while I'm gone. So there you go. Pops is helping contribute as well, and you are to Raider Nation. So thanks so much. Network top 20, number 7. NFL listen leaders, number 4. And NFL YouTube leaders, number 6. So again, hats off to you. Now, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get down to the real business. Klint Kubiak, a lot of reaction to him. I've done about 8 or 9 different radio shows talking about Klint Kubiak in the new chapter of the Silver and Black, which is really cool to get that call from multiple outlets to talk about the Raiders. Because again, just like on Radio Row in San Francisco last week at the Moscone Center, the Raiders are at the top of people's mind. Number 1 pick in the draft, just got their head coach, have a lot of money in salary cap space, and obviously a historic franchise. So Jordan Schultz, NFL insider, NFL on Fox, does a fantastic job. He had this to say about the Klint Kubiak hire and why it makes so much sense, especially with Fernando Mendoza incoming.
The Raiders have officially hired Super Bowl winning OC Klint Kubiak as their new head coach. And we said it here on the show previously. Tom Brady got an up-close look at Kubiak in the 2 playoff games Fox did in Seattle. And the thing about Klint is he's an offensive dude who's also an innovator. Now, Kubiak has shown an excellent ability to play to the strengths of his players. And for this organization, you're about to draft Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback out of Indiana, number 1 overall. And I've heard from several people that personality-wise and football mind-wise, Kubiak and Mendoza will mesh extremely well. If they have the head coach quarterback combo right, they're going to be off and running on building this thing the right way.
Just wanted to pass that along because, again, that is really the conversation that a lot of people are having about Klint Kubiak. I talked about his introductory press conference. If you checked it out, you listened to it or watched it, you understand what I'm saying. He's not a guy that's going to wow the room, right? But he's a guy that's all about ball. He's a guy that's honest. He's a guy that leans on his faith, very much so. And, he's just ready to get to work, right? He knows it's going to be a challenge. He knows the division is very difficult, right? I mean, he's the one coach with no experience as far as a head coach. He's got to put a staff together. He's behind, right? He'll be in the building today, so that's a positive. But it just seems like one of those guys that, is just ready to roll up his sleeves. He's been around the NFL game for a very long time. Obviously, the son of Gary Kubiak, who's a 4-time Super Bowl champion, who, oh, by the way, will be on my radio show coming up on Friday. So I look forward to that. Good stuff from him I'll definitely bring to the podcast coming up on Monday. But I just think with Fernando Mendoza incoming, and, like I said, it's a 99.9% chance that he's going to be incoming. And then you get a guy like Klint Kubiak having that opportunity to work with him hand in hand, right? And again, I've said it so many times, he doesn't have to start. There's a good chance that he's not going to start, right? Everyone who talks about, well, the Raiders aren't ready. Okay, fine. If he's not ready, you can still get him. Doesn't mean that you have to, to put him out there day one just because he was picked number 1 overall. That's the beauty of having a 5-year deal. That's the beauty of understanding where you are as a team. That's where the continuity with the GM and the head coach being on the same page, that's where that matters. If the GM and the head coach are on the same page, the GM might want to get him out there right away. The head coach might be like, no, I don't want to play him. I want to play a veteran, right? I mean, that's the thing. But if you're on the same page, you're on the same timeline. And that's why when we talk about Max Crosby, you got to get on the same timeline there, right? You want to hope that, that Max and Spytek and Kubiak are all on the same timeline. Obviously, they're going to have plenty more conversations. But I just think that it's really important that they're all matched up. It's very important that these two guys are allowed to grow, right? Raider Nation can't be too loud about, the results early on because they might not be great, right? This might be a team that realistically wins 4 or 5 games in 2026. You want to see the growth. You want to see the plan. You want to see the vision, most importantly. So that's something to pay attention to. But as you heard Jordan Schultz talk about, this could end up being the best hire possible for the incoming situation, having Fernando Mendoza as that quarterback, and how they really could work well together, and similar, personalities, not really. I mean, Mendoza obviously is a different personality than Kubiak, but, the guys that are all about ball. And Mendoza is all about ball. He's a guy that many people talk about. He might be about ball too much. Well, guess what? That's who Klint Kubiak is as well. Real quick, we had a call about the Max Crosby situation and reference Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback, talking about Alex Guerrero. That's Tom Brady's right-hand man. And I mentioned the other day that I had someone hit me up that used to be in the Raiders building that's not anymore, that said Alex Guerrero is basically the assistant GM. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't know how much input he has. I know he's a guy that many players referenced during training camp when they were talking about the heat and how they were staying hydrated and how they were keeping their body right. And for the most part, all the players that I talked to all like Alex Guerrero. I remember Max talking about him a couple times throughout the course of training camp, and it seemed like he was okay with them as well. But, Albert Breer, as I saw in his article, he did mention Alex Guerrero. He said in the end of it, Crosby's loyalty to the Davis family and his loyalty to an identity with the Raiders organization mattered to him, which probably kept the situation from getting worse. But Brady and Alex Guerrero, Brady's longtime body coach and now a Vegas executive, were all involved in all of this from the Raiders, and Guerrero's involvement in communicating all this was part of it. So there's some fence mending that'll need to be done on that end for sure. So again, like I said on Wednesday's show, Albert Breer is not bringing up something and just throwing something against the wall and hoping it sticks. I know a lot of people are in 100% denial about any of these reports about Max and him not being happy with the organization. Ultimately, I think he ends up staying with the team. I don't think that he wants to go to the team and ask for a trade. I think he wants to get it done with the Raiders. He wants to be a winner in Las Vegas, and he really doesn't want to disappoint Raider Nation because he loves Raider Nation. He loves being a member of the Raiders, and he loves the relationship he has with Mark Davis. But there could be a situation where they all need to sit down and hash out whatever's going on between Guerrero, Brady, and Max Crosby. And again, when a guy like Albert Breer is putting something out there, it's not just, like I said, it's not just clickbait. He's talking about what he's hearing and what he knows. But that's just a situation that'll work itself out somehow, some way. Coming up in segment number 2, you'll hear from Corbin Smith, Locked On Seahawks, talk about some guys that could potentially come over with Klint Kubiak to the Raiders, whether that's assistant coaches or even players. We'll do that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors we have here on the show, and that is TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with the local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every single deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert did not file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. You have till the end of the month. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Time to hear from Corbin Smith, host of Locked On Seahawks, talking about potential coaches and players that could be making a beeline from Seattle to Las Vegas to be with Klint Kubiak. And every time there's a new head coaching hire, you always kind of follow the path of that coach, right? They always end up bringing in guys that they're familiar with, whether that's coaches or players. So we kind of want to know, the assistant coaches that could be coming in, who's going to be the offensive coordinator, who's going to be the defensive coordinator, who's going to be the offensive line coach. Obviously, that's really important. So Corbin Smith joined my radio show on Wednesday, and we started the conversation with the question about assistant coaches, and if there's any in particular he thought would be following Klint Kubiak to Las Vegas.
If I had to make a prediction right now, I think the assistant that's most likely to follow him is Andrew Janocko. He is one of the 4 that's expected to interview for Seattle's offensive coordinator job, but he's been with Kubiak in Minnesota, New Orleans, and Seattle. So those 2 are as tied together as any pair of coaches that was on the Seahawks staff. And he's never been a play caller, but in Vegas, he wouldn't need to be. It would be a promotional title to offensive coordinator, but he's coached linemen, he's coached receivers, he's coached quarterbacks, including Sam Darnold this past season. That would be the one that I think is most likely to follow him. The one that is kind of a 50-50 proposition for most people, I'm leaning more 70-30 that he stays, but a lot of people are looking at it as a coin flip, is John Benton, the offensive line coach. I talked to John Benton last week before the Super Bowl, and he made it very clear that he was excited about the continuity to see how Seahawks had on their offensive line, that really young, talented group that just won a Super Bowl, all of them under contract for at least one more year together. That might be really, really hard for him to leave, even with his ties to Kubiak. But he has been with Kubiak in New Orleans and Seattle, so maybe Kubiak's able to sell him on coming to Vegas and trying to do another reclamation project with that offensive line. But those would be the 2 names that immediately pop into my head. We'll see what ends up happening with Justin Outen, Seattle's run game coordinator. He is up for the offensive coordinator job in Seattle as well, and he's got some past ties with Kubiak. If he's not the play caller in Seattle, maybe he comes over to Vegas and has kind of a hybrid offensive coordinator, offensive line job. There's a lot of moving parts here.
What about the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks? Obviously, Mike McDonald is calling the plays there. Do you think any interest from the DC to come to Vegas?
Well, I think Seattle would block it, first off. The Seahawks do not have to allow him to leave in that case because the league rules mandate, even if he's not a play caller, that the Seahawks can block that. Okay. So I don't know that Aden Durde would be coming over. That would be McDonald just allowing him to do it. I find it hard to believe that McDonald would be on board with that, with some of the comments he made yesterday. Maybe they'll surprise me, but I would keep an eye on Carl Scott, though. He's the pass game coordinator on defense for Seattle. And I think he's got a chance to be a head coach someday. He's got to be a defensive coordinator first, but he's heavily been involved in that aspect in Mike McDonald's 2 years here in Seattle. That would be the big name on Seattle's defensive staff that I could see Klint Kubiak plucking and naming his defensive coordinator.
So those are coaches. What about players? The one player that I've been talking about, I think I talked with you about him last week on Radio Row, was Rashid Shaheed. I know he's a free agent, but I know that he loves Seattle, and I know Seattle's got plenty of money. What are your thoughts on Shaheed?
That one's going to be fascinating because Shaheed, one of the big reasons the Seahawks brought him in was because of his prior ties to Kubiak in New Orleans. So it makes a ton of sense that people are putting the dots together with that. Seattle does have money. They do have a affinity for this kid. They tried to get him 2 years ago at the trade deadline. So coming off a Super Bowl, I don't think it's a given that he's leaving, but certainly Kubiak could have the sway to be able to. And look, he's got a chance to be the number one guy in Vegas. In Seattle, he's not going to be that with JSN. So that might be something they can sell on him and maybe overpay for him to bring him to Vegas. But Seattle's got the Super Bowl pedigree. He'd obviously be their main kick and punt returner still, playing with Sam Darnold. I think that's one that is truly a 50-50. If Seattle was hurting cap space-wise, I'd be leaning Las Vegas, but I don't think it's a given that he's following Kubiak necessarily.
What about any other players that are free agents for Seattle that you think may be good fits with Klint Kubiak?
Ooh, the offensive side of the ball, there's just not very many guys that are free agents, and I don't see Ken Walker because of Ashton Genty's presence. Yeah. I don't see Ken Walker coming to Vegas. So I don't know that you're going to find anybody from Seattle, but you might want to look at New Orleans because they've still got some players that played for Kubiak 2 years ago that are going to be hitting the free agent market or might be available in trades to help the offensive line as one particular area. I just don't know that Seattle's got anybody that is, none of their offensive linemen are free agents. Ken Walker and Shaheed are really the only notable guys on offense that are free agents. Even the quarterback position, everybody is under contract next year. So I don't know that Kubiak's going to have very many players that he can bring in on that side of the ball. Certainly he could help the Raiders' defense with some of the guys like Reek Woolen and Josh Jobe that are going to be free agents. I just don't know that offensively there's many options away from Rashid Shaheed that would make sense for them.
Let me go back to Shaheed real quick. I mean, you mentioned that he's not going to be a number one wide receiver in Seattle. Does he have the capability of being a number one, or is he just a number two, a guy that can stretch the field and a guy that's got a lot of speed to make plays?
I consider him a very good number two. I don't think he's not quite polished enough as an all-around route runner for me, especially what I saw the second half in Seattle. And some of that was just building chemistry with Sam Darnold. Their timing wasn't where it needed to be. But I think he is an explosive playmaker. He can do a lot in the run game. Obviously, his special teams value. I think when you look at the complete picture, he is worth significant investment financially. I don't think he is a polished enough receiver overall to be a true number one. But in Vegas, he probably would be that guy. And so that's the thing you have to think about is, are we going to invest that kind of money in somebody that maybe isn't a true one, but he's going to be our number one? Those are some things they're going to have to think about.
Any backup offensive linemen that you think might be on the cusp of being starters there in Seattle?
Well, I'll throw one name out. Josh Jones has been in the league for a while, but he started 3 games for Charles Cross at the end of the year, and he was fantastic. He's a guy that's really athletic, and he fits that wide zone scheme. I would actually, that would be the name on offense that makes the most sense to me other than Rashid Shaheed, because he would instantly be an upgrade over what the Raiders have in a number of spots. He can start at guard, too. He started at left tackle for Seattle, but he can play both tackle spots and both guard spots. He's very versatile, and he's still under 30 years old, so...
Okay, all right. That's one to circle for sure because the Raiders definitely need some upgrades along that offensive line, especially running that scheme. That scheme has never worked for the Raiders, but I know that wide zone, that zone blocking scheme, that's a staple. Like that's a thumbprint of the Kubiak offense. Like that's going to be ran.
Yep, you guys are going to see a lot of wide zone. It's going to get repetitive, but you're hoping to see some success with Genty like Seattle got with Ken Walker in the second half of the season.
So there's Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks, does a fantastic job covering them. Obviously, that was a hell of a year, right? He's the last man standing. Seahawks win the Super Bowl, so he's feeling good about himself. But it's funny, I saw him on Radio Row last week, in San Francisco, and he said, man, and he kind of just gave me that look like you're stealing my offensive coordinator. That's a big deal, man. That's going to be a big loss for the Seahawks not having Klint Kubiak there. I know that right now they're tied with the Rams to be favorites to get back to the Super Bowl next year, but I think that loss of their offensive coordinator is going to be a really big deal, right? Before they had Klint Kubiak, they had Ryan Grubb, and he wasn't very good. He ended up going back to Alabama. It just wasn't a very good OC. Sometimes it's hard. That's why they're trying to hire from within, right? There's 4 coaches that have an opportunity to be put in that offensive coordinator position. Whoever doesn't get that job with Seattle will probably end up with Klint Kubiak in Las Vegas. So there's a couple guys to pay attention to. I keep thinking that the quarterback coach is going to end up going to be with the Raiders and be with Klint Kubiak because he's been with them every step of the way. But again, something to pay attention to. Just wanted to have some names for you to kind of think about, have in the back of your mind. And as you see all the hires come through, and they got to get this done pretty quick. So I know Klint Kubiak has a short list of guys that he wants. And, of course, when free agency opens up, there'll be some guys that he pays attention to as well that are in Seattle right now that could potentially be Raiders. But I just want to get those guys on your radar at this stage of the game. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show, 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor here on the show, and that is FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you can only see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel, it just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling, matches that start slow, and then somehow they intensify. They get fast, speed skating, races decided by inches. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening faceoff, right? They're fighting for the country. Even all kind of just niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into competition, and the competition is king. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, so you should be too. There's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Here we go, Raider Nation, segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Again, we'd like to thank you so much for making this the first listen of the day. Off top, we got a call from LJ Raider in Canada. He's calling to talk about Max and his relationship with the organization and ownership. Here's LJ Raider in Canada.
Hey, Q, it's LJ Raider from Canada. I saw some news on there and lots of outlets, Yahoo, all that, saying Max is basically done with the Raiders, will never play or rather retire. This is my take on it. It's not the actual, situation itself. It's more of player access. And where I'm going with that is just, like everything you hear is like, Max Crosby is good friends with Mark Davis. That should never happen. There needs to be layers in an organization as to where the access is, because when a player thinks he has that much access, or he does, then in between there lies some some power, and in this case here he has a lot of power, and then just feeling that he's been either let down, betrayed, maybe some things were promised that should never have been said, or you just don't know. But I do know one thing: with access comes situations where you just can't rectify the situation. And so I'm hoping when the Raiders go forward, like Mark Davis should not have any players coming to him. Maybe at the end of their career, when they're going to be a lifelong Raider, that's a different story. I know Richard Seymour turned in some. He had some access there. He was a part of the hiring process. I think Marcel Reese at one point had a pretty good relationship with them. He had some kind of a role. But when a player is playing, should not happen. Like you have to have boundaries. You have to have guidelines, protocols in place. When you all go back to that situation, or when you used to talk about serious, unserious, or for entertainment purposes only, I think they're entertainment and for entertainment purposes only. That's really what I think. Like we always say, oh, it's Cleveland or the Jets. We're no better. We're no better. Like we always have our drama. And this is a year, probably 2 or 3 in a row now where we've just had drama. So anyways, that's my take. I hope everything works out with Max Crosby. I don't have any venom towards him. If he wants to go, you got to let him go. The problem here, though, is that by going so public with this, you can't maximize what you want to get for him. And it's almost like he's doing it on purpose. So, anyways, I hope you have a good day. I hope the Raiders turn this thing around and go from there. Anyways, Raiders for life. All right, take care. Bye.
LJ, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And the thing is, you bring up good points about players and their access. But Mark, he's a player's owner, right? He's always got the door open where you can go upstairs and go right to his office, right? He's got the relationships with the players. Always has. He always will, right? And he's very tight with Max. And I don't see anything changing anytime soon. When we met with him and talked to him after Klint Kubiak's press conference on Tuesday, he's like, someone asked him, do you want Max to stay with the organization? He's like, yeah, right? Like that's a dumb question. Of course I want Max to stay, right? And Max is the guy. He's been through some things personally on the field, off the field, but that's our guy. Like, he loves Max Crosby. So if it's up to Mark Davis, he ain't going nowhere, right? And I know ultimately it is because the Raiders don't have to move him, even if he says he wants to be traded. But I don't think you want to usher in a new head coach trying to establish a culture of everyone buying in and being there, and then there's a guy that's a malcontent not wanting to be there. So I think that they would, move him if he asked for it, but I think he would have to ask to be traded. So there you go. Thanks, LJ, for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Raider Mike in Westchester, California. 2026 will mark my 44th season as a diehard Raider fan. Thank you, Q, for everything you do for the nation. You're my first listen of the day. I've been fortunate enough to witness a Super Bowl win, years of consistent winning, and regular playoff appearances. I've also lived through plenty of 500 seasons and, unfortunately, the lows of 2 to 4 win years. I've seen it all. I'm optimistic about Klint Kubiak as our head coach. I believe he has real potential, and it goes without saying that I'll be rooting hard for his success. At the same time, I felt optimism with past head coaches' hires, too. Each had positives and a path to success, but for various reasons, it never fully materialized. Because of that, I'm choosing to temper my expectation. There are so many variables in the NFL that determine success or failure, often beyond what any one coach could control. All I hope for is a scenario that leads to long-term sustained success. The younger generation, like my 15-year-old son, deserves to experience this franchise winning on the field, win, lose, or tie. Raiders till I die. Raider Mike in Westchester, Cali. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. And, yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of young generation, including Little Q, who's 22 right now, still waiting to see what I've been talking about for the longest. Oh, man, this team's going to be back. This team's going to be great, man. This team, man, they the commitment to excellence, that's real. He's like, yeah, Dad, I don't see it. And unfortunately, even for the majority of my life, I haven't seen it, right? I mean, when they won their last Super Bowl back in the 83 year, I was like 7. So I wasn't fully invested. So unfortunately, I haven't seen a whole lot of Raiders wins either. I haven't really been fully bought in when they're winning their championships, and so they need to win another one. They need to get another Lombardi for the trophy case so the younger generation can appreciate it. But it's not something that I think is going to happen this year. I don't think it's going to happen next year. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to grow, that's for sure. But I do feel pretty positive about Klint Kubiak. And it's funny, the thing is, I felt pretty good about Pete Carroll, felt really good about AP, but I felt good about him for different reasons. AP had never been a head coach, but it felt like he was getting back to the Raider way. Getting that rah-rah, getting that spirit, getting that culture in that locker room turned around, something we hear all the time. So that was the reason I got behind AP. You saw the success they had in the second half of the season when he was the interim coach. It's like, man, these guys are really playing hard for him. Obviously, that didn't work out. Pete Carroll, was excited about him because, well, he had the resume that said he's a winning head coach, right? And he's talking about, hey, I don't do anything but to win at least 10 games a season. And I didn't say 10. I thought he was going to be at 8, double what they did with AP, and obviously they only won 3. This, I don't have expectations that they're going to win a lot of games. I'm thinking 4 or 5 maybe, right, if I'm just going to throw a number on it. But I just want to see how it's built. I want to see the growth. I want to see the plan. I want to be able to see the vision. I want to be able to identify what this team is supposed to be, right? And I want to see Klint Kubiak as a head coach grow with this team, including with the quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. So thanks so much for the text. I definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Jay Claus from L.A. He's calling to talk about the Klint Kubiak presser and his thoughts on the new Raider head coach. Here's Jay Claus from L.A.
Yo, what's up, Q and Ari, Raider Nation? Jay Claus from L.A. I just wanted to call in and say that I'm actually really excited this season. I think after watching that presser with Klint and seeing all the legends up there and just seeing the way he handled it, it did give me a lot of hope. I think if anybody's ever been a part of a sports team in school, you really there are those different rah-rah guys. But I really like a Kubiak type. Reminds me when I was running cross country and I was team captain. It's a different type of motivation you got to give, and because people come from different walks of life, so I think he comes off real professional, and to me I think that's a good way to go for us building our culture, personal accountability, and just being he's going to be professional. He's going to tell it like it is. So I think that is just a real good look for us. So seeing how he handled that, I think that gives me a lot of hope as to where we can go this season. And I hope Crosby stays because we are going to turn the corner, and I want him to be a part of it. He deserves it. He deserves to get it with us. So that's it. Thank you guys for everything you do. And, yeah, go Raiders. Stay clawed out.
JC, thanks so much for the call, my man. Appreciate you. And, yeah, I think that Kubiak, he has the right mindset, right? He has the correct approach. No, he's not overpromising. He didn't put a number of wins that they're going to have. No rah-rah, no yelling out Raiders, getting the crowd all hyped up. Just let it be known the team has work to do. He's excited by the challenge. He's a very honest guy. Again, I mentioned in segment number 1, he leans on his faith. He's a real football coach. Like, you could just tell that he's a son of a ball coach, right? I mean, he's Gary Kubiak is a hell of a coach. He did a great job when he was the head coach there of the Houston Texans. Obviously, multiple-time Super Bowl champ. So, yeah, he's been around the game a lot. And on top of that, he's seen the Raiders as an organization from the other side, from being in the Denver organization and understanding the battles that the two teams that used to have and understand what it used to mean, to be in that division rivalry with the Raiders. And now he's getting to lead the charge for the Silver and Black. I think he'll take a little bit of pride in that for sure. And, yes, Max is going to be needed. There's no doubt. You don't get better by letting your best player go. And that's exactly who he is. So thanks so much for that. I do appreciate you. Got a text from Aaron in San Diego. We'll close out with this. Hey, Q, just wanted to say if the reports on Crosby are true, he probably needs to go. Pure speculation, but I don't think guys like Genty and Bowers really wanted to be drafted by the Raiders if they had their choice. It's bad for them to see the team leader possibly wanting out and not showing up for Kubiak's press conference. I get it, kind of, but we're also at least honestly trying to win. He's also getting paid over $30 million a season, and the organization really doesn't owe Max anything other than making an honest effort to win, which is exactly what they're doing. Hiring Kubiak and probably selecting Mendoza. We all love Crosby, but I absolutely do think we can get the same value Dallas got for Parsons. There would definitely be a bidding war, especially as the draft approaches. Every team in the league is going to be interested, especially ones that see themselves being close, and especially a team who doesn't want their rival to land them. If there's really an issue with Crosby wanting out and it lingers close to the draft, I think it's just time to trade him. Thanks. That's Aaron in San Diego. Thanks for the text. I appreciate you. I think they would move him if he wants to be moved. If he goes to him and says, look, you need to trade me, then I think they will. I don't think that they'll get the same thing that the Cowboys got for Parsons. They got a 2026 first-round pick, a 2027 first-round pick, and also a 3-time Pro Bowler in Kenny Clark. I don't see them getting that from Max. He'll be 29 in August. By the time the season starts, he's coming off another knee surgery. Yes, he plays all the snaps. He gives all the effort. He's a hell of a player. There's no doubt about that. But I just don't think that they're going to give up that much. Now, maybe, again, there's a team that gets desperate. Maybe there does become a bidding war, and then that drives up the price. Me personally, I just don't see it. But that's just me. And you're right. The contract is very tradable. It's not too much money. I mean, he's making, about $35 million a year? That's not bad at all compared to some of these contracts around the league. It is very tradable if they wanted to. I just don't see if they're going to do it. I don't think that they're going to do it unless he wants out. And on top of that, it's not really a great sign that your best player wants out when you're trying to build, a winning program and you need your best player, right? I mean, that's the thing about it. I would love to see Max stick around and play and really lead this team and be one of the alphas and be one of the reasons why this thing got turned around. Him, Genty, Bowers, right? Mendoza, other guys they bring in, offensive linemen obviously stepping their game up, right, and getting right. So that's what I'd love to see. Now, who knows if that's really going to happen and play out like that. But thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. Long Island Raider, got a call from him. Got a lengthy text from Philly Raider. We'll get to tomorrow as we close out the week really strong. We do have the Raider Squad Show this morning with Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself, 7:30 a.m. And, of course, we'll be continuing the conversation on Max, on Mendoza, on Kubiak. Those conversations have been going on for a couple weeks now, and they'll continue to roll on. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.